welcome to another edition of the Creighton Report. I'm actually on home territory now. The school's only a stone's throw up the road. The academy now, oh dear, things have certainly changed since I was at school. But being too near the school, I don't know. Potential assassins or anything like that. Oh dear, of course by the time you see this I'll be a long way away. But I think you know what I'm talking about. Yes, so the Creighton Report has become a very, very big book now. Have a look. Oh, chapter after chapter we've been writing. It started off as a very small book. It's now a very, very big book. Today we're talking about something to do with art, something to do with visual things. Oh, I remember Mr. Gibbon. Mr. Gibbon, the woodwork teacher. He used to have another teacher. I remember, the first few years you would make something that the teacher would direct you to make. I remember making a whole load of few things. The only one I really remember is making a hacksaw. You would do that in metalwork. And then we were all asked to think of an idea that we would all do individually. So, the other teacher, which I can't remember on the other side, there was the woodwork room and the metalwork room in the south wing. They were together. And the teacher says, right, can you, I want to write down everything that you thought of making. And Terence Crickett's, other people were saying, I want to make this, I want to make an ashtray, I want to make a lamp holder, things like that. And Terence Crickett says, I want to make a snooker table. You want to make what? A snooker table, sir. He was serious. He wanted to make a snooker table. Andreas, what do you want to make? Well, I might as well help Terence Crickett make his snooker table. And then the teacher says, go and ask Mr. Gibbon next door what you want to make. And I knew what was going to happen. Terence Crickett, he was totally serious. So we go up to Mr. Gibbon. So what do you want to make then? A snooker table. And Mr. Gibbon suddenly shouts, I'm surrounded by lunatics. Oh. And then Mr. Gibbon went with Terence Crickett back to the other teacher to talk to him. I stayed there. I said, good luck, Terence. Good luck, Terence. Play the goodies Funky Gibbon. That would calm down Mr. Gibbon no end if you start singing that song to him. But I said, all yours, Terence. All yours. A snooker table. Needless to say, no balls were pocketed that year, I can tell you that much. So we're in the sixth form and you have your options to do, I did all my retakes and everything. And I don't know how this happened, but we chose art. We chose art to do along with all the other subjects. So I had history, I had chemistry, things like that, and all that kind of stuff. But we could choose art. So we're in the art room. And remember, we're sixth formers, and we go into the art room, and we're with Mr. Reed. Now, it was Mr. Reed's last year at Creighton, and he was so moody. So moody, and I thought, oh dear, he must be so upset that he's leaving Creighton. No, I remember Mr. Reed in the first year. He was moody even then. But he always had I know a lot of people like Mr. Reed, and I liked him as well, but he's hardly the person to go to the pub with, let's put it that way. How can you have a superiority complex to everybody when you're doing visual study, when you are the head of the visual studies department? You're not the head of the mathematics department or the chemistry, something really important. But he seemed to have this air of always thought that he was better than everybody else. I've got loads of examples of it. But anyway, so what we would do, we would have Mr. Reed for 3 days a week. He was hands-off sort of teacher. He would let you just get on with it. We're sixth formers, I can understand it. And for 1 day of that week, And I remember it was the Wednesday we would have another art teacher called Miss Reynolds. Now, we used to go, me and this guy, me and my friend Ahmed, we used to go into the art room. Now, I don't know why this happened, but somehow, maybe it's because we came from the other wing, but it always seemed like the fifth formers who were in the art class seemed to have an hour ahead of us. So me and Ahmed, we used to go into the class and we used to look at everybody's work just before we start ours, and everyone's doing a Picasso. Everyone's doing a really great piece of art, and we're sort of thinking, me and Ahmed are looking at each other as if to say, oh dear, we've got real competition here. And we would go up and get our paints and our things, and oh, you remember what they used to be like. Everything obviously would have been taken. You would have had thick brushes that were left that people used to use glue with, so it'd be tight and all sticky. No equipment, but you could say, well, why didn't you go and buy? Looking back at it, we could have actually bought our own art equipment. So I'm not going to say that's an excuse, but we used to start with our little art drawing, a little line. We were just so embarrassed, so embarrassed. I mean, literally everyone in that class. Remember, this class was 3 times a week. Miss Three wasn't there. It's just get on with it. Do a form of art. You're all free to do anything that you like to do. Anyway, this kept on happening. We kept on going down there. As I said, they always seemed to have an hour ahead of us. In the end, it was so demoralizing. Anyway, Mr. Reed one day says, okay, everybody, you've got a choice either to do CSE or O-level. Well, you know what I think about CSE. So I put down I wanted to put the O-level. So Mr. Reed put us through to whatever we wanted to do. Me and Ahmed chose the O-level. But the thing is time used to go on, and in the end, me and Ahmed was so embarrassed, demoralized, you name it. It's like, I can't explain it to you what it's like. It's like you going to play football in a team, and you're trying to play football, and everyone's playing football, and they're really, passing it and this and that, showing a lot of skills, and then you get the ball and you just can't do anything. You're not gonna, you may be able to take it for a few lessons, but eventually by Christmas, we stopped going. We stopped going to Mr. Reed's class, those 3 lessons a week. Not because we didn't want to go, it's because we were just too embarrassed to go. Our painting, I mean, it was just every single, and 3 times a week this would happen. But Miss Reynolds' class, there was no not going to that class. But we wanted to go to art. Anyway, once a week we would have Miss Reynolds, and we would turn up at Miss Reynolds' class, ready for action. This time we're going to do some art. Remember, she was more of a teacher. She wouldn't just leave you and go. Well, she would do that, but she would give you the exercise beforehand. So there's quite a few of us in the art class for Miss Reynolds, and she puts a plant in the middle of the class, and everyone's sitting around the class, and she says, will you use these crayons to draw these plants? At last, and I can tell you that everyone in this class, there was no 5th formers in that class, they were all 6th formers, all useless at art as all of us were. I mean, some of us were so useless at art. I remember there was a girl called Maxine Morgan. Oh, she was a lovely girl, she was. Lovely girl. We were asked to do a motorbike once, to actually paint a motorbike. This is what she came out with. And I remember looking at it with Senil Haki, and we were laughing at it. And Maxine Morgan was sitting right there. And I looked at the name, Maxine Morgan, and I looked at her and I went, oh, no. I should laugh. Anyway, it's nice to actually laugh at a piece of work instead of being in Mr. Reed's class and actually crying at our pieces of work. But anyway, so we're trying to draw this plant in the middle, but Miss Reynolds, oh dear, I don't know what it was, but I suppose this is supposed to be arty. We're in the art class, visual studies, abstract and everything like that. You are going to draw and paint the negative sections of the plant. I said, you're joking, aren't you? Yes, so there was a girl called Catherine Antonis in front of me. She was wearing a purple jumper. So I go and look for, because you have to draw the purple bits, not the plant. And I go and look for purple. There's no purple, there's blue anyway. But anyway, draw the negative sections of a plant. Used to come out, everything used to be something, it used to be like paint, but paint with one arm behind your back. Another day, she would say, you're painting again, and we couldn't wait. So you had a whole lot of materials in front. It's going to be dotty. You're using crayon or charcoal, and you're doing it in dots. Oh dear, can't we just do something on our own? Oh, and then on another day, I remember we had to make cones out of newspaper, a collage, cones, and we had to do, and she never actually showed us an example of what it should look like. But it was great for Miss Reynolds. At the end of the class, she could have her say, "This is not what I expected. This is absolute rubbish." Oh, but I didn't know what she was. Everyone used to do, at least we're all in the same boat. Everyone used to do exactly what was told, but not in the way Miss Reynolds said. A classic one was, we were in a class one, it ended up with only me and Senel in the class. Fancy that. Fancy that it sort of migrated to just me and Senel Hackey in the class. And she put a whole load of things in the middle. I remember we were all sitting on stools and we looked up to these. You would have an oil can and this and that, and it was a whole load of collages. So, right, okay, start drawing that. So we'd have our charcoal and you have your big piece of paper like this. And you start drawing. Right, change positions. I said, what? Change positions, you're drawing it again. So me and Hackey would change positions and we would draw it again. Right, change the last position, you're drawing it again from the last position. So we draw it again. And Miss Reynolds, oh, I don't know what she needed, Miss Reynolds. I think I know what she needed, but I think we were a bit too young for her. Let's put it that way. But she said, "This is not what I expected. This is not how it should have been." Oh, I feel happy for Miss Reynolds. She used to get her oar in, she used to, she used to like to get her power. It was her power trip to actually tell us this is not how it should be, and this is how it was every Wednesday. But I can tell you, most of us didn't miss that class. I don't think anyone had the guts to miss Miss Reynolds' class, if you know what I mean. But Mr. Reed, he wasn't really there or anything, so if he's not there, of course you're going to leave early. And by Christmas time, we were out of the art. We didn't go back to Mr. Reed's class, so if you can imagine, January, February, March, we're not in his class at all. That's 3 lessons. We wanted to be, but we couldn't go. We were just too demoralized. Anyway, Ahmed decided to change. I mean, we had painting. There was lots of different departments and everything. If you're doing an O-level, there was the pottery department, clay department, you know what I'm saying, painting. There was another department, I can't remember exactly what they were. But my friend Ahmed decided to change to clay. I think that was probably a good idea, but I wanted to stick to painting. Anyway, we had an evil trio. You cannot just have 2 evil people in the art department. There has to be a third. It's like a triangle. A triangle of evil. We had another woman called Miss Rapley. Oh, if I remember, Miss Rapley was our form tutor. I remember walking into Creighton School, the North Wing, the front entrance, and I remember, I'll never forget it, I look up and I see Miss Rapley. She opens the window. "Andres, why weren't you here last Friday?" "I had a doctor's appointment, Miss Rapley." "Bring the form. Bring the form." "I will, Miss Rapley, do not worry." Well, that's what it was like. That was it was like. I still got the form, Miss Rapley. I've still got the form. This is my doctor's appointment form. Let me show you how it used to be. I took it out of the diary. Remember, I'm not telling you memories from from 50 years ago out of the top of my head. It's all written down in a lot of detail in a diary. But anyway, so Miss Rapley, if you're out there, I just want to show you again. Okay, it was the Royal Northern Hospital. It's closed now, by the way. That's actually closed, and there you go. Can you see the date there? Yes. Oh, oh dear. Anyway, the moment of reckoning comes. Ahmed comes up to me and says, "You're going to have to go up to Mr. Reed. He wants to talk to you about the O level." And I said to him, "Well, we haven't been in his class for the last 4 months. I'm not going to go down there and do the O level. You have to go and see him." I said, "Well, there's no point, he's not even going to let me do it, I said, "I wouldn't let me do it if I was him." Anyway, Ahmed forces me down. I go down to see Mr. Reed, and he says to me, "So, you want to do the O-level, eh?" And I'm sort of saying, I'm not going to give him actually I don't want to do the O-level. I understand what you're talking about, that I haven't been there for, the last 4 months. And then Miss Rapley's there as well. And Miss Rapley says, and I actually didn't realise that she actually said this, I just actually saw this in the diary. "If it was me, Andreas, I would let you do it." Oh, awful people in the art department. Awful. Oh, a triangle of evil. Actually, I don't blame them at all. I'm a teacher as well, and I know if any people get on my nerves, it's always I usually try to find a revenge, find a way to get my own back. But unfortunately, there's feedback. There was no feedback for them in those days. We couldn't give feedback to our teachers how ill-treated we were. In fact, I used to like being better in the old days, so don't get me wrong. Nowadays, being a teacher, you get feedback. You have to decide. Do you want to win brownie points, or do you want your salary at the end of the year? So usually my students get away with murder. But that's another story. Anyway, Mr. Reed says to me, "Look, you're doing the O-level. Get back into class." It was actually at that moment of the class. "Get back into class and start painting." Well, I don't know how much time there was in the class, but again, I get my painting. Everyone's doing a masterpiece, and I'm getting bored there, and I decide to leave the room. "Hey, there's 8 minutes to go yet." And I went, oh. So I go back and sit down. Mr. Reed swaggered back into the class. He's talking to me, but he's talking to the whole class. "I don't understand it with some people. You give them an inch, they take a mile." I'll never forget it. Looked at the clock. Remember, I said 8 minutes to go. Everyone left 4 minutes early. I'm still in the class. I'm waiting for that buzzer to go. Once the buzzer goes, I'm off. So I waited that extra 4 minutes in the class by myself. But I sort of thought, give them an inch, you take a mile, as if Mr. Reed was doing me a favour. I'm pretty sure that if he registered me, that I have to do the exam. I don't think he was doing me any favours. He was not doing me any favours at all. But that's my opinion. I don't know that for that. I don't know if he had the power to say, "Yeah, you're not doing the exam," because remember, if you don't turn up, you've got to pay for it. It was like that with any written examination. I don't know if it was like that for visual studies, for that O-level. I would imagine that it is. Anyway, so it comes up to the actual exam. So this exam is done in May, well out of the way of the main exams in June. So it's in May. Remember, my friend Ahmed is doing pottery. The clay part, he didn't do painting, he changed. And there was this girl, I'll never forget it. It was this girl, her name was Jackie. And she looked like Cheryl Ladd from Charlie's Angels. And she, look, don't worry, because my friend Ahmed, he sort of was worried about it. I'll help you. And she gave him so much help. And she was there, yes, you could do this and that. Maybe you can do that and this and this and that. And, he was listening to it. I thought it was very nice of her to actually help him. Anyway, we get the O-level, and Mr. Reed's going to give us more time than the actual O-level. I've actually got the paper here. Okay, so you're given 6 hours. 6 hours of paper 1 and 3 hours of paper 2. Paper 2 was drawing or painting, and paper 1 was working in 2 dimensions. So I chose the special quality of dead trees. Special quality of dead trees. We used to always go to the park. Always go to the park near Creighton, and I used to see dead trees all over the place. Anyway, Ahmed drew me this little drawing. He actually drew this out of the top of his head. And I thought, what a great drawing that is. I copied it. I've got the drawing here. I made another copy of it in the diary so you can actually see what the quality of the dead tree was. And we get on to it. I don't know, but it came out okay. But remember, in the exam, when it says trees, Mr. E came over and said, remember the exam says trees as in plural. So I had to do another 2 trees. Wow. Oh dear. I thought, I suppose you could call this cheating. I copied Ahmed's work for that one. I wanted him to draw me another 2 trees. But I couldn't find him. I looked all over the school, couldn't find him. I had to do them myself. They didn't look too bad, but the trees did look really dead in the background. Then Mr. E comes along, do the sky, Andreas, and you finished. I didn't know how to do a sky. I realised that the deadly trio, those awful trio people, Rapley, Reynolds and Mr. Reed, not so much Mr. Reed, but definitely Rapley and Reynolds, they wanted me to do that exam so they could have a laugh. Have a laugh at my expense. Let's get back at Andy. He's such a bad person because he used to miss lessons. Used to miss Mr. Reed's lessons. Not because I wanted extra time in the Wimpy. No. We were just embarrassed. We were not bad people. They were the bad people. But, I don't want to sort of go on to them. If I were them, I'd probably do the same thing. Nothing wrong with being vindictive. Oh, dear. And as I walk out of the art room, they waited for me. And I'm pretty sure it was Rapley who said this. Did you see Andreas's work? Ha ha! Oh, dear. I said, listen, have your laugh. Have your life. My sky was terrible. It was really, really bad. But I think it wasn't a bad painting that I produced. Anyway, while this is happening, I look up and I say to myself, wow, Ahmed must be doing his work now. I'll go and find him. I couldn't find him. He said he had nightmares about it. Nightmares about his pottery O-level. He didn't even turn up. And he had to face that girl that looked like Cheryl Ladd, and I'll never forget her face. It was like, I can't remember what Ahmed's excuse was that he didn't come. I don't know, he missed the train or something. I don't know what it was. I did actually feel sorry for her. I don't know if Ahmed had to pay for that exam. I never asked him if he had to pay for not turning up in the O-level exam. Anyway, remember there's a part 2. There's a part 2 to the exam. And that's the drawing part. The drawing part, and it was, if you have a look, open a toolbox, throw out the contents, and draw what's there. So I go down to the woodwork department and I say to the guy, can I borrow, a set of tools? No problem, here they are. I put them on the desk. This time, it is not like before. It is not like you don't have the right equipment. I had the right equipment. I had my rubbers, my pencils, my HB pencils, my this, my that, my that, my this. I had it all there. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just drew what was in front of me. Slowly, I couldn't believe it. It was so realistic that you could get your hand and actually pick out one of the tools from my paper. I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. This is crazy, but I read in the diary, I didn't even have breakfast that morning and I had a headache. How I managed to do that, not having breakfast, that's crazy. I read in the diary that I didn't even bother, that I nearly fainted in the class. Oh, wouldn't they have had a laugh if I had fainted in the middle of that? But I didn't faint. But as I'm drawing, I can see that there is someone watching me. Someone watching me from behind. It's Miss Reynolds. I could tell it's Miss Reynolds without even looking behind me. And I swear to you, she must have taken 5 minutes to look at my work. 5 minutes to look at my work. And she stumps out of the room as if to say, she knew that was a pass. She knew she couldn't laugh at my work. And I wanted to say, Miss Reynolds, they didn't ask us to do dots. They didn't ask us to make painting so that you don't draw. You mustn't paint in a linear way. It's going to be dots. Don't draw the negative sections. Do the inverse. Do this. Do that. Do it in 3D. There's nothing like that. This was just straightforward art. That's what I wanted to say to her. We didn't learn anything in that class. It's funny, I talk to art students today and I tell them these stories and they say, aren't they supposed to be helping you? Helping you? Oh, no, it was all about a power trip. No laughing on that time. No one laughed on that time. And my biggest regret was not going back. Not going back next year to pick up that work. I wish I could show it to you. I would have framed it. But I just didn't want to go and pick it. I don't know why. It was the biggest regret I've ever done in my whole life. Anyway, my friend Ahmed goes up to the teacher, Miss Rapley, and says to her, oh, by the way, I passed art with a C. With a C, so obviously I must have done really well on one of the papers. Maybe not so well on the trees, but a C, I mean, that was a great grade. Oh, by the way, all the people that had done brilliant work, I felt sorry for them. I understand why maybe they should have chosen CSE. All the people that did brilliant work all through the year came up with rubbish. Is this this guy called Michael, who was a real artist. Is this Michael's work? It's rubbish. I was sorry for him. Actually, there was another guy. There was an A-level that A-levels were doing. I couldn't believe this. I saw this in the art in the gallery in Trafalgar Square. That an artist can actually start from the corner and actually paint all the way down to the bottom corner. Now, if you had told me that, and I hadn't seen this, there was a guy in there that he used to do these beautiful cartoons, but he wouldn't draw it and then make it like we would do, try and make it all composition and everything. He would start from the corner and do this beautiful cartoon as he drew from one corner to another. It just shows you that art is a very complicated thing in the human brain. It always fascinated me that. The way he did it. Anyway, Ahmed, he goes over to the Miss Rapley and says, do you know that Andreas passed his art O-level in the end? And Miss Rapley says, I know. There's just no justice in the world. If I was there, I would have gone up to Miss Rapley and said, you're right, Miss Rapley. There is no justice in this world. Only poetic justice. And that's the story. That's the story of art. We were not bad people, Miss Rapley. There's my card. Let me show you it again. Let me show you again. That's my card. Oh, that's the reason I was there. I was in hospital, the Royal Northern Hospital. It doesn't exist anymore, by the way. Okay, I think I told you that before. But I don't know. This is the kind of thing that we had to put up with in the art department. But all would be forgiven. All would be forgiven, at least with Miss Reynolds, if something like this could have happened.
Andreas, today we are going to draw a life model.
Really, Miss Reynolds? Are we going to do a life form? Hey, wait a minute. I did see this in an episode of Grange Hill. It's not an old man naked, is it?
No, it's a beautiful young naked lady.
Ah, this is music to my ears. Oh, Miss Reynolds, all is forgiven. All that power trip that you did all through the year, all that's forgiven. All those horrible times that you made us feel hopeless and useless on the Wednesday, which gave us great confidence not to go to Mr. Reed's class, by the way. On the other days, But listen, Miss Reynolds, I have to tell you, all is forgiven.
There's one more thing you need to know. You will all be doing the drawing blindfolded.
No! 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 Oh!
Andres, this is not what I expected.
Oh, no kidding, Miss Reynolds.